Hello and welcome. This is episode 25 of Turn-Based Memories. This is going to be an episode about Elden Ring, a game that's new and current and not old. My name is Mel, and my co-host is Zoltan. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi. So this episode, we're shaking up the format once again.
Yep.
Instead of having a long video or a series of multiple parts of essentially a long production, what we did this time is we both wrote a review, which will be published on YouTube. Zoltan's review will be in the description that you can read, and my review will be in the pinned comment for the video on YouTube. If you're listening to this on a podcast service, we have a YouTube channel. And
Yeah.
that is where you will find the text that we're referring to. But it's not necessary. It's more there for your reference. But they are complete reviews in case there's something in there that you want to look at. And that is what we are basing our comments and our discussion off of, so that we have more insight into what we're doing before we have the discussion. That's the idea anyway.
Right.
So without further ado, of course, this is Elden Ring. I think around about now is probably when most people who bought the game on or near release are probably wrapping up their first playthroughs. Like most
non-YouTubers.
amazing
Yeah.
non-YouTubers who are really great at the game, non-speed runners, people who have like a normal amount of time on their hands and are decently proficient at a Souls-like game, are probably now, if not maybe a week or so ago, like myself, finishing up their first playthrough of a game that you said took you 145 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
How long did you take?
According to my Steam clock, it's 192 hours.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and I don't think very much of that is idle time. Like, I will often, especially on computer games, because I'm also using my computer for other things, I'll minimize the game and do something else. But this will get into a later part of the discussion. That wasn't something I was really capable of doing with Elden Ring on my computer.
Because you can't pause the game, right?
No, it's a performance issue.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So we'll get into that later. So I just want to go through, that was the first comment I have, because in your review you mentioned it took you 145 hours to beat. So it took me about 192 without much idle time inflating the clock.
Yeah, same here. Not that much.
Right. So I'm going to scroll down a bit on your review. You have a section here about music and sound effects. And, you mentioned how, and I think we're very much on the same page here, that, you mentioned a game's sound effects are noticeable if they're really good, or they're not noticeable at all, or they're only noticeable if they're really horrible and they shouldn't, there's something wrong.
Right.
If they're doing their job, they're in the background. It's like UI design. Like, if it's doing its job, you don't have any thoughts about it.
Right.
But if it's amazing, you maybe have some thoughts, or if it's really horrible and they need to change it. So in this case, the UI and the sound effects or whatever, no comment, right, on that stuff.
Not much, yeah. Oh, the UI, I guess I do have a comment, just because people have been, professional reviewers have been, going on about it, about whether it's good or bad and all that. It's kind of amazing, is it not, the UI?
I think it's...
the user interface, that's what you're referring to, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I lumped that into sound effects for some reason, but we didn't actually mention it in either of our reviews, right?
I mean, it's just it's important, I guess, but yeah, it did the job, and
it did do the job. It's also remarkably unchanged in many ways from
the old ones,
Souls.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Right down to the way the stats look, and kind of, someone made the point of, if you're looking at this for the very first time, is this
even a different
confusing?
game.
Is it, yeah, is it like, can you tell what's going on here? Because it's a very particular, like, here's what you have plus stat scaling, here's what you have if you change your equipment. Like, that's what all those, like,
Right.
columns are.
Right,
But
right.
none of those columns are headed. Like, they don't tell you what those columns are. You just know.
I guess so. Huh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, even if you mouse over, or not mouse over, if you hit the explanation button to see what the thing is, it still doesn't tell you.
What?
You
Okay.
kind of have to know. Like, it
It
doesn't tell
tells.
you this column is A, this column is B, this column is C. There's four columns. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
tell you.
I guess so. I kind of felt like that was self-explanatory enough. When you hit the explanation button, though, it'll explain all the different stats for you, though. And
Right. It does explain a lot. And the original Demon Souls notoriously never did. And that was one of the biggest improvements of Dark Souls,
oh,
is
did it
that
have the explanation
addition.
button?
No, I remember having to have the manual out with me when playing that game because they didn't even have abbreviations like dex, strength, whatever. They had these random symbols.
Symbols. Oh, that was in Dark Souls also, or just in Demon Souls?
Demon Souls,
Right.
just Demon
Yeah.
Souls. They had these random fucking symbols. One meant strength, one meant like a quit burden,
Right.
and so it was just like symbols and numbers.
And it's like, what do
Like, what does
these
it
mean?
mean?
Yeah. So they put the explanation button in Dark Souls, though.
Yes, they put that
Okay.
in there, and they also got rid of the symbols that don't mean anything.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah.
Thank God is right, and so they much improved on that, and they added more explanation to more of the UI as the games moved along, including I think a little bit more in this one.
Hmm.
But they still don't quite explain like things like stat scaling. I don't think they ever really explicitly outline
Yeah. I guess they
how that
don't.
works because I mean, I guess it's kind of self-evident. If it has an A, it's more, and the number is not the total. It's you have to do the math in your head, right? So if it's 10 and it shows a plus 10,
Yeah. Both of
um,
them. Right. Right. Right.
that means you have 20
Exactly. Yes.
attack, and then you can get to another page in the UI by pressing triangle or whatever button on Xbox to
Hmm.
cycle to the other page on the right panel to
Right.
show total damage value for whatever the equip slot you're using is that you're looking at. And that's the real number that you probably care about.
I don't think I found that number. I just did the math every time.
Oh, really? So you didn't know about that other page?
I didn't know. I don't. Maybe I didn't. What was normally on the rightmost panel?
I I'd have to look, but it's not just a breakdown of like what's in your right hand, what's in your second slot right hand, and your third slot right hand. It shows
It's
you the total value of the output for that damage.
okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't really pay attention to that one because whenever you uh, go to equip a different weapon, it's in like the second from the right panel or the middle panel or whatever. That it shows you. Okay, this will give you. The scaling will go from D to a little bit better D or to
Yeah,
C.
that's another quirk. Is like
Right.
D and then blue
Blue
D
D is like a
means it's
little bit better,
better D.
but it's not quite C. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They could
It's
have
a
just put a plus
number.
on there or something.
It's a number. They just don't want to show you what the number is. It's bizarre. It's just one of the quirks of these games, which is a holdover from fucking Doom Souls from 2011 or whatever it is.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So when
um,
you first mentioned AI UI though, I was thinking about
mm,
the in gameplay like outside of the menu UI.
okay,
Or I guess that's not the is that the UI? Yeah, it is the UI, right?
sure. Yeah,
Or
it's
the
a heads-up
HUD.
display.
The HUD.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. I
HUD.
guess that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking about. But I always thought it was a really genius system they had here, where they put just like four boxes, one in the
Uh-huh.
top, one on the bottom, one on the left, one on the right, and the left and rights are what's in each hand, and the top and bottom
Right.
is your item and your magic,
Mm-hmm.
and that you could use the D-pad to just cycle through the different things you've equipped in there, and then you
Mm-hmm.
can press the L button to use the left hand and the R button to use the right hand. I've always thought that was a really great system and really
Intuitive.
versatile, intuitive and versatile because there's lots of things you can do with it.
Sure.
You know, because they have the weak attack and also the strong attack on the L2 R2 buttons. You can push like the triangle button and then you can double hand a single weapon. There's all kinds of things that they let you do with it, and I was always really impressed with it. And then this time, I think that they went further with just like the on-screen, I guess, HUD, heads-up display, is that now they make all those things disappear when you're not in combat. And I think that was a big move.
Turned that off. I made it always on.
Oh, okay.
Because I felt like if I was running around and I forgot that I was low on health before I ran up on some enemies, I might not notice. Okay. I was worried that I would die, so I have it always on.
I see.
But normally, because you will spend a long period of time in the game running around, not in combat. And when you're not in combat, a big change, again, we didn't mention our reviews, they removed stamina drain out of combat, which is huge.
Yeah, which definitely was the right choice considering the long distances you can sprint in this game, right?
Could you imagine if you had to throttle your stamina the whole game?
Yeah.
That would really stink. It was annoying in the other games.
Right. So should we get back to sound effects, though? We never really... That was the main point, right?
We got a little off track there. So you wrote... and I'm not sure if I'm interpreting it well, the sound effects, but also the soundtrack. Unless you have more you want to talk about the sound effects.
In the case of the sound effects, they were all good, which means that I didn't even notice them. Like, you only notice if a sword slash sound sounds really awesome. If it, I don't know when you notice if it's like way over the top, maybe then you notice it or something. And then the only time you're going to notice if it's bad is if it just doesn't sound slashy enough.
I guess so. Yeah, you're right. I think they were all serviceable. Exactly. I said similar about the actual soundtrack. And I'm not sure if I'm interpreting your review correctly. You were a little harsher on
I would say
soundtrack.
It was, I mean, no, it's like, once again, we're both employing the word serviceable, are we not?
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So I guess I was a little bit harsh because it is beginning to sound, I guess, overdone to my ears after hearing lots of video games. Yeah, I don't know. It's felt the thing that I have not done. The thing that I have not done is I have not gone back and listened outside of playing the game, like on YouTube, the songs sitting there in listening to the details and stuff. But just playing, like, right from the opening, the title screen, and it's got that sound. I don't know what you call this, but it's like the freaking violins are, like, dragging the bow across the strings. So it's going...
Yeah.
They're not really playing hard notes. They're just, making some kind of weird horror-esque crescendo. And then they comes in with a big pounce. Bah, bah. And I heard that, and right from the moment of the freaking crescendo-y thing, I'm like, are you serious? You're going to do that thing that every movie trailer does? Okay. And then they come in with dun, dun. Okay, and I'm listening. And when they hit the third chord, I'm like, dude, really? You're going to play that chord? Isn't that like the chord that every movie soundtrack plays? I don't know. It sounded like such... Like, it could have been in any epic fantasy RPG, I felt like. And
I think you're right. I don't know, outside of maybe a couple of tracks here and there that are popular, that this Souls series is especially known for its soundtrack. Like, there's a handful
a few
that
of them,
I don't know if you care for. Personally, I don't think I care for. I don't hate any of them, but I don't have any attachment to any of them. But people like Gwyn's soundtrack in Dark Souls.
That's the final boss of Dark Souls 1, right?
Yeah.
That's the one that's the piano by, I guess, maybe by Motoi. Yeah, by Motoi Sakuraba did Dark Souls 1, yeah. Yeah. I've never had such an attachment to that song specifically either.
Me neither.
But everybody loves it to death.
They really do.
I think they just love the atmosphere. Like, they were so impressed by the story because they did all the detective work required, I guess. Or they watched Vati Vidya videos or something.
Right. Yeah.
But either way, they were like just so impressed with what Hidetaka Miyazaki did with that game That when it finally
Right.
came down to that dude being the final boss, combined with that, pretty different sounding song compared to all the rest of the
Yes.
tracks in the soundtrack, that they were just impacted in that way.
I think a similar thing was being attempted here with this game's final encounter.
The beast, the Elden Beast.
Yeah, I think that
Okay,
was a very different compared to the fight right before it and the fight right before that. Very different.
musically as well. You mean?
Or the music specifically.
Okay. To be honest, I can't remember the music now.
It was very choral and
Not heavy. It wasn't heavy like all
not
the other
heavy at
ones.
all.
Okay.
No, very majestic and almost like somber because I don't know about you, but that fight was pretty easy.
Um, I don't know. I died the first time, but I had
I
help
died a
later.
couple times as well, but after getting a grip on that fight, it was nothing compared to having to get a grip on the
The
previous
one
two
before.
fights.
Okay.
Right. So for me anyway. So
Right.
when
I
I
had help,
played
so
it,
I can't really make a comment about how hard it was
right.
on
Well,
that
we'll get
one.
into that.
Yeah.
But the only other remaining comment I have on the music is I did actually listen to it outside of the game
Okay.
when I was doing some work on some other stuff at home, and it fit the bill for like ambient,
So it
the
didn't.
the the playlist that I had must have just been like the overworld sort of running around music,
That one.
and
Yeah.
that was like pretty much serviceable, just
Yeah.
like music to have on in the background type
Right.
stuff.
So okay. So let me go to my music question for you. Where is it?
Hmm.
Here it is. Can you remember any of the boss themes? Because they all sounded, I don't know what it is, but like, even on the bosses, like even the boss I fought the most times, because like for the longest time I was like, no, I'm gonna do it solo. I'm gonna do it solo.
Uh-huh.
Was Margit, the ill omen, the fell omen?
Right.
The fell
Okay.
omen, maybe.
Yeah. The filler. Yes.
Yeah. And I literally I didn't count, but I'm pretty sure I fought him over 50 times. He was
I believe
super
you.
hard for me. And I cannot remember the song at all. And
I can't either.
you
Not
can't either?
his.
And you
No,
fought him
not
several times
his.
too?
A fair good number, yeah. And the funny thing is, I'm trying to think as you're saying this
What
parts of
was
the
it?
soundtrack, but of all the boss fights, and little bits and snippets and pieces are coming through, but I couldn't like sit and think and could reconstruct it. Like there are little parts of the opening here and there that I kind of remember. There's one that giant moose boss. Did you
Right.
fight that?
I didn't fight
That
it, but
one
I
was
know of it.
different. That was a different soundtrack. It was more like rain
Spiritual.
sticks and spiritual and
Mm.
stuff like that, but still very in the background, not in the foreground of the experience. And I think that's kind of the point. Like that's kind of what they
It
were. They
might
were
be.
asking you to walk away from this game with like humming a tune in your head.
Yeah,
There's no theme of
mm.
Elden Ring, really.
Yeah, I guess so, right? It doesn't have that thing
Yeah,
going
no.
on. Like
Uh-huh,
everybody remembers
correct.
that because it was catchy, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah, nobody's gonna remember that opening crescendo or whatever from the
Yeah,
title screen or whatever.
not really. I mean, it
Yeah.
was, I guess, effective and epic, but
So that
eh.
I guess that's what they were going for because
Of course, yeah.
that they weren't really trying to make it stand out that much. I don't know. I just feel weird saying that because every time you walk into a boss room, it's just like The thing is, I don't remember any of the songs, but all of them
Yeah.
sounded kind of like that to me.
Yeah, the Tree Sentinel music is coming back to me just now, and it's just nothing. It's like I couldn't even hum it to you because it's so. Just imagine violins and horns doing things in an
Doing
epic
things
way.
in an
Like
epic
that's
way.
kind of what it is. That's all it is.
Yeah. So I kind of wish I would actually say that a lot of the earlier Souls games, by comparison, had a lot more memorable things. Demon Souls, for example, every time you're in that hub area, I can't remember what it's
Hmm.
called now. It had this weird harp music, like dun, dun,
In
dun.
Demon Souls?
In Demon
Oh, the
Souls,
Nexus.
the
The
Nexus. When
Nexus.
you're in the Nexus, it had this weird harp music going
It
dun
did.
dun dun, and it really stood out. Um, yeah, admittedly, I don't remember any of the boss themes in that one, but there were a few areas that had outstanding tracks. At least, like also there was an area. I do remember one of the boss areas where there was this princess and her knight in like the poison world in the
Yes.
last. And when you, as soon as you walk into the room, before the boss fight even starts, there's actually music in that room, and I believe it was harpsichord music, so it sounded totally different from all
I
the
think
rest.
I remember that. Yeah. I
Yeah,
couldn't piece it together in my head, but that does feel familiar.
right. And then
Um,
yeah, in Dark Souls 1 there was Gwyn and maybe there was some other outstanding pieces. And then when I remember when I played Dark Souls 3, I was blown away multiple times by boss themes because
hmm.
they very, I don't know. They to a some degree, they what's the word I'm looking for here? Synchronized it with the music, with what's happening. They synchronized just a crescendo, if you will, a just big upbeat in the music with something that happens in the boss battle. So, for example, there are these crystal sages. Do you remember that boss? They're like these
Yes.
wizard dudes, like
Yep.
they have like skeleton faces. And at first, there's just one of them, and you're like walking up and you're hitting, and it just you're hitting it, and it sounds like just totally doesn't stand out, cinematic ambient boss music. Um, lots of strings or whatever, like horror sounding strings. Once you get it to about halfway, it's gonna start appearing not it because this is a boss that disappears and reappears. It's gonna disappear, and the next time it reappears, it's gonna have three other dudes with him, and it's amazing. If you're standing in just the right spot and looking at a big wide area of the field, the moment that all four of those dudes pop out with their capes swinging all around, all four of them pop up at the same time, the music goes like dun, and I'm like, oh my god, and it's amazing just because they synchronize the music to it. And it's the same thing with
Yeah.
like the most famous Dark Souls song ever made. It's also by Motoi Sakuraba. It's the Vort of the Boreal Valley, where it's just like and you don't know what the hell they're saying. And then
Right.
like
Yeah.
just because of this synchronized part that they put where once he hits phase 2, he starts charging you.
Yeah.
And the moment he charges you, the freaking music goes, ha, 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 ha.
Oh
And
yeah, I forgot about that.
that song, right? That's like the most famous Dark Souls song. It's my favorite one ever. I use it for everything now.
That's right. Yes. I
So,
remember you telling me this.
yeah, Dark Souls 3 has that. This game, I don't think it didn't stand out to me. Like I feel like I might have just missed it, but I don't know.
There may or may not be a slight soundtrack change in one or two of the Starfell Beast fights
Okay, I
when he
never felt
goes
a
into
star.
phase two.
Mm.
The like big
Are
the
these
big four-legged like beasts that have pincers on their face. Do
pincers
you
on
ever
their
fight those?
face? Whoa.
Yeah. They're these rocky, they have like rocks on their body, and they have these like weird bug pincers on their head.
Don't think I fought
And
any of those.
hmm,
Huh.
there's one by Lindell on the way up that you don't have to fight. It's like on the way, and then there's one in on the way to the Volcano Manor, which again I think you can avoid. You can go in another way.
I came in the other way, I think.
I guess so. It's like on top of a mountain. I
Yeah.
think there's three or four in the whole game, but anyway, that
Yes.
was more of a like cosmic sort of soundtrack that was a little different. I couldn't replicate it for you, but
Mm.
there was some of those enemies in this game that had sort of a cosmic, sort of weird, almost Bloodborne sort of vibe to them.
Hmm. Okay. And they had a little bit of that synchronizing the music
A
with.
little bit when they hit phase two here and there, or they did certain actions, I think. But again, it wasn't very pronounced. And I think you're right. Like this game doesn't quite do that, other than like I think Godric, the guy with the dragon arm, Godric the
The
Grafted. I think
grafted
his
one? Yeah.
phase two has different music,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
it's probably nothing
It's separated by a cutscene though.
memorable. It is. Um, so let's see here. Yeah, that was kind of all I had for the soundtrack, other than
Same
its
here.
ambient, like the running around music. Pretty
Mm,
good. Like you're going to be doing a lot of running around, so you don't want the music getting in your way, right?
that's true,
The
right. Yeah.
music also is slightly functional because you can listen to the change in music
To,
when you have aggro on an enemy.
right.
Like it will slightly change to something a little more menacing
Right. So
if
that's
an
cool.
enemy is looking at you and can see you. But even if you have the music turned off, you'll know an enemy is looking at you if your stamina starts to drain when you
Oh,
go to jump or run.
that's right. And also you
So
can't open the map if somebody's looking at you.
true.
And I kept
Yeah.
wanting to open it.
Yeah, I've gotten into into that tight spot as well.
Hmm.
So that's all I had on your note there for the soundtrack. I have another note slightly down on your review. You wrote about the uh like the differences between blocking and parrying and dodge rolling,
Hmm.
and you didn't mention something that I had to remind myself about, which is jumping.
Oh, yeah, I totally failed this game by not using much jumping,
I
even though they taught you how to
know
do it. You
they
too?
totally, yes, because it's so burned into my brain
To press the
as
dodge
as
button.
well as not an option, like or I should say it's just totally not in my brain at all that I can do this
Right.
in combat specifically. So there were instances where I was in like a really tight area and enemies, you can't run through them. And I was like, shit, I'm stuck. I can't like kill them quick enough. They're gonna kill me. Oh my god. And then I remembered, oh, I can just jump.
That's right. I mean,
So
I'm in the same situation
yeah.
as you. Like, I don't know. For one thing, I just felt like, all these guys' is big ass slashes. We're talking about bosses now anyway. All these
Mhm.
guys' is big ass swings. There's no way I can jump over those. And so I just didn't even try most of the time. But I'm sure there were
There
plenty of
are a
times.
lot of times where that's possible, but also there are many attacks that a lot of the bosses do that just do floor damage that you can jump over.
Oh, I don't think.
A
Wow.
lot of times they
Oh my
try to
God.
get you to do this,
I can
and
remember some now. And I'm like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And I did never jumped.
supposed
I
to
never
jump.
jumped.
And the fight with Godfrey and Horalu, his second phase, every time he stomps on the ground,
Right.
if you jump, it's a free dodge. Free. Totally free. Just jump. Easy. It's easier. It takes less stamina than rolling. You
Less
time it way
timing.
less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super free.
Forgot about
And
it all. Yeah.
it's a screen wide shockwave. So you kind of have to jump or dodge.
Yeah.
You can't block it. And there's a attack that the final boss does where he goes up into the sky, and then there's these concentric rings that close in on you.
That
You
never
can't
happened to
dodge
me.
roll. That never
Yeah.
happened to you? Oh my gosh. So what he'll do is he'll go up into the sky, and
Mm,
I think you lose lock on because he goes up really high.
right.
And then around your character, or if you're summoning in co-op, one of the characters will be a circle, and then pulsing from the outer edge in toward the center will be like a big line, and you can try to dodge roll through it, but the line is so broad that you won't be able to dodge roll and you'll get hit and stunned. And
Mm,
if you don't get out of that circle in time, it will explode, doing probably lethal amounts of damage.
mm,
So what you're supposed to do is jump over those
right.
lines. And if you jump, it's like, again, it's free, super easy. And
No.
it didn't occur to me all the way up until the end of the game to do that until I saw someone else doing it.
Same here.
It's
I
like,
saw
oh,
someone else do that. I was like, that didn't happen to me though.
shit.
Hmm. And I was in that
uh,
battle for a long time too. And like it never
that's
did that.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, his attacks are weird in that final phase. So now also something else I looked at is the jump does have iframes. This was a
What?
yeah,
I
this was
didn't know
a
that. See, so I mentioned in my review, and nobody ever talks about this, but you mentioned things that aren't explained in the menu, and I didn't really think about them or notice them. Um, and then this is another thing. The dodge has iframes, and anybody who's ever played a Souls game knows. But
of
like I said,
course.
I told you before, when I first played Demon Souls, there was no reason for me to think that there's
Nope.
iframes.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thought I had to get away and dodge.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like it was forever before I found out you're supposed to use the iframes. It's not just like
Oh yeah.
it's not like just like the Super Mario Brothers iframes where they need to have them so that the game works at all. Like you're
Right.
supposed to go through blades with it. And I
Right.
was like,
Yeah. And
what? And
that
they never
is
tell you.
they never tell you this in any Dark Souls game, Souls, Bloodborne, whatever. And in Bloodborne, it's even more egregious because your character isn't even dodge rolling; they're just kind of like skipping forward. Like
But
it's
you
like
don't
a
take them.
really, but you just are intangible for no explicable reason. Your character is completely intangible when they're just kind of skipping forward a bit.
Right.
No reason. And you often will do that toward an enemy through
Their
attacks,
attack, yeah.
and that is usually the right thing to do because if you dodge away, many of these enemies are designed to punish that by having really long reaching attacks that will still hit you if you roll away because
Right.
they're just so long
Yeah.
or slow
Right,
or
right.
whatever.
The blade is still extended. Yeah.
hmm And many of the enemies are you're if you got through the whole game and you didn't think that this was happening, I'm surprised. But the enemies
Right.
definitely reveal they read your button presses.
Oh,
They
I
know
could
what you're doing.
totally tell. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
the moment you press the freaking
heal button.
the heal button, like they start
Something
charging you.
happens. Yeah, they'll
Mm.
charge you. They'll do a ranged attack of some kind if they have that. Whatever it is, they want to heal punish you. Oh, like on command. And
Yeah.
you can usually do a couple tricks to avoid that or whatever, but oftentimes it's a very successful punish on their part, where they usually will get me and take out almost exactly as much as I healed for.
Right. So it was pointless. Yeah.
Yeah, and that can be frustrating. But right, so you want to roll through them, but the jumping also has iframes on the lower half of your body, not your whole body.
Huh. So your legs can get hit, huh? I mean, your
Right,
legs
and
are impervious, huh?
your legs become intangible the same way they do during a dodge roll, but
Right.
only like waist
Only
down
the legs, though. Yeah.
during part of the animation. But yeah, you do benefit pretty well. And someone showed the video where they show the frame data and like the characters like hitbox mesh that shows what it's doing.
Oh wow.
And if you have a two-handed weapon, your arms are not part of that intangibility. And oftentimes, if you have like a dagger or something, your arms are down by your side.
Hmm.
If you have a two-handed weapon, your arms are up at your shoulder because
Oh, because you're
you're
holding
always
them up.
holding your weapon up on your shoulder if it's a two-handed weapon. So
Uh,
that makes you less vulnerable, and you will actually avoid certain attacks that you wouldn't avoid otherwise. So
what? That's
it, it
crazy.
is, yeah.
And that's stuff that like just a random like just a random gamer, like if you're not a hardcore gamer, like I can imagine this being pretty hard to figure out. Like you kind of have to get lucky with what you choose to do, I want to say. Cuz
Well, since the game's on PC, people can kind of tear it apart pretty effectively. Like you can see what the collision data is doing.
right, I'm talking about just like the person who doesn't look at those videos
Oh, okay.
and who just buys this game that's popular and heard about it because it has George R. R. Martin in it,
Right.
is probably gonna have a pretty hard time.
Oh yeah, I agree. I think these games are increasingly, despite what I wrote in my review, which is that this game is probably the easiest one to start with. I
Mm.
think there is still an element of like there's a layer of I don't know inside knowledge that kind of have to walk through or step past. And the
Mm.
dodge roll is one of the biggest ones. Is that you have iframes on your dodge roll? Like
And now
that
I'm
should
finding
be
out.
like on the box.
And now I'm finding out you have iframes on your freaking jump leg, your
I
legs of your
know.
jump.
Right. That was like another one that just people were always assuming it was there, and then you would often get hit. I've gotten hit out of the air, out of a jump plenty of times.
Right.
So I always was like, I guess not. But,
Mm-hmm.
even as a pure mechanism of moving yourself out of the way, like an actual dodge, it's still effective, even just for that.
Yeah. And it also they added in like special jump attacks too, so that's pretty
Oh
cool.
my God, the jump attacks. I mean, were you using those all the time too?
No, hardly ever because
Really?
because I wasn't using big ass swords.
Oh, right.
I
You're
started
using a pole arm,
I was
right?
using a pole arm later, and in the beginning I was using a bow, and
Mm-hmm.
between I used the bow throughout the game, but I was using mostly a bow for a little while, and then for a while I was just using those Wolverine type claws.
Yes, I had
Yeah,
those too.
yeah, those are pretty fun. And yeah, I don't know, I didn't feel like that's the kind of weapon to fall down on the enemy with, so I didn't
Right.
bother.
Well, I would say they're pretty effective even with the claws because you do a lot more damage with that. And the stamina cost is pretty low for the amount of damage. It's like a charged R2 almost.
Oh wow, I
It's
also
not
didn't do any
quite as strong
charging.
as that,
Yeah, I really
but
like did not do much outside of what you can do in Dark Souls 3.
right.
Didn't
Uh,
jump attack, didn't charge attack. I
the
did do a
jump
little bit
attack
of
is
the
definitely strong though.
yeah, I saw lots of people online doing it, and I was like, wow, and in videos as well.
Right.
Okay.
So let's see here. On you're right. So the builds and balance part of your review, you said that there was an issue where you encountered where there was a delay when you go to press the dodge button.
You say, yeah, I think it's just the way the game is programmed. I don't think it was a.
Right.
I mean, we say it as an issue. It's an issue, but I don't think it was like a mistake. And
Right.
I mean, did you not notice it?
I did. So what's going on here? And I wasn't sure maybe what exactly you were experiencing because there's two things going on here. There's the
Okay.
input buffer that the game has, where if you are staggered, like an enemy does a big
Right.
attack and you get hit and you're like, what? And your character reels back. If you pressed the dodge roll button, for example,
During the reel
during
back.
the early frames of that reel back of that stagger, it will then happen as soon as your character stops being staggered, which in
Right.
some cases could be like seconds after,
I
like
know,
a
right?
noticeable amount of time. And by that point, you may not want to do a dodge roll.
Right. You definitely don't probably. Yeah. Yeah, that was driving me crazy a few times too. And one of the main reasons that was happening so much to me is because, you know, so this is what I think is the most difficulty creating aspect of the entire game because there's all these things that you can do to make the game way easier than any other
Mhm.
Souls game.
Right.
And that's cool. I'm glad those are there. But I hate this one aspect about how bosses work now because like in older games it's like they're gonna do this kind of swing and this kind of attack and this kind of attack, and when you see it you move like this to avoid it. But now it's
Hmm.
not like that anymore. I feel like it hasn't been like that since Dark Souls 3 at least. Where now the games have gotten faster and faster since then, and also they added all kinds of weird hesitations
Oh,
to the
yes.
freaking swings. So
This
like,
game is all about characters like faking you out, or enemies,
right,
bosses in particular, faking you out with really like almost comically slow
reel
swings.
backs for their swings, right? I mean, I
And I
can.
think Horaloo is the biggest offender, quote unquote,
Oh yeah,
of this, where he will just like raise his hand and like, "Whoa," and then do a big attack.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. If it was that Hora Lu, no, it wasn't him. He didn't have a weapon, right? There was a guy
No.
close to the end, who like when they would swing their weapon, like they'd swing their body forward and like their arms moving forward, but like I don't know, it was their last. It was their very final flick of their wrist that finally got their weapon to join the swing. And so
Yeah.
like he was like fully well into the swing when I was avoiding. But then the axe came down on me after I got back up. I was like, really? Are you gonna do that to me now? And
The only defense of that is their animations aren't dynamic. So
they're
the thing
set.
is, they're set animations, and
Okay.
the whole, the whole name of the game when it comes to these difficult encounters is pattern recognition. When you see him do whatever
That
that
swing.
very delayed move is, it's a matter of remembering how
When
long the delay is.
right. Right,
And it's the
exactly.
same delay every time,
So that's good.
but
Okay.
it is a large number of moves that you have to remember under pressure.
Right.
And you get hit because you fucked it up, and now you're backpedaling and you need to heal. Are you going to remember all the shit you were trying to remember? That kind
Mm,
of thing. Some
yeah.
of it is definitely reactable, but I think in order to be consistent, you do have to memorize these attacks. And the thing is, a lot of these attacks aren't just attacks, they're attack patterns. There are
Right.
several attacks. There's
Right.
3, 4, 5, 6 attacks to a pattern, and sometimes that pattern does change where they won't do the final 1 or 2 attacks, or they will. And that can be
Ah.
really, really tricky.
Yeah, that's one of the things I remember freaking Margit doing.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in with like a couple slashes, and I'm thinking, yes, I
Yeah.
blocked him or I dodge rolled him, and now I'm going to attack. And right as I'm about to attack, he freaking materializes that magic yellow sword in his left hand and
Yep.
just slices me from the side. Ugh.
Yeah, and that attack ignores a lot of physical damage blocking. So if you
Right.
have a good shield, you're still getting dinged for a good
Yep.
amount of damage regardless. And
Yep.
it's a real fucker of an early fight. Really a big fucker.
Yeah.
But the other element I wanted to make sure, and this is something that actually trips up a lot of people, is that the dodge roll is not doesn't occur when you press the button.
Right.
It occurs when you release the button.
So I was aware of that because I know how these
Okay,
games always use the circle button to dash as well.
correct. You
Yeah,
can dash back by well,
tapping it.
actually what you're doing is you're engaging sprint. That dash back still doesn't occur
Release.
until you release if you're moving. If you're stationary and you press the button without releasing, you will do a dash back. But if
Immediately.
you're immediately.
Oh, okay.
But if you are moving forward, pressing the button will enable sprinting.
Right.
Releasing then does the dodge roll within a certain amount of time. So, and the game can fuck that up sometimes, I've noticed, where if you press it, then if you let your finger off enough to recognize it as being let go and then press again, you might roll when you don't want to roll.
Oh, I
That's
see.
happened to me a few times.
That never happened to me, but yeah. So I always was aware of how it's programmed after you release the button because if
Hmm.
you hold it, you're gonna dash. And I always thought that was crappy and that they should choose a different dash button. But
It is a little weird, but
mhm.
they've improved it a bit. So I
How
also
so?
remapped my controls because this is a game that included a new button, a new function, jumping.
That's right. Oh, isn't this the first time also that we can like fully customize the controller?
Maybe on
Ah,
console, I'm not sure.
yeah. So I played on PS4. That's right. You can fully customize the buttons, but you can't like change like only the dash function to another button. I remember that now. So you go into the
Oh,
menu and it's like dash/dodge roll, that button.
oh, right,
So they're
yes, you
connected.
can't.
So yeah,
They are.
that's right.
Yeah,
But you can change it to any button. So that's pretty cool.
yeah. Because the only change I made was the interaction button. and the jump button. I swapped them. So jump is on what would be the equivalent
Triangle?
on triangle. Yeah,
That's quick. Why?
because the interact button was always X before.
Oh, okay. So you wanted to go back to normal.
So
I
I
see.
kept hitting that when I was jumping. I was like, I want to jump. So I had to do that. Something other people got caught up on, and this did happen to me, but it wasn't a big deal, was the crouch. That's another new
Many
thing you can
times.
do in this game. Right.
Dude. So no, I'm sorry. It wasn't the crouch that was giving me problems. It was the switching to another, to two-handing whatever you're holding.
Oh, sure.
I'm not sure what it was, but like,
It's different in this game.
it's different. I know how to do it. You hold the triangle button and then push either R1 or L1.
Right.
I can't,
Well,
even to
yeah.
this day, I can't figure out why it happened, but over and over and over again, like so many times, like more than 20 times throughout the 120 hours, 145 hours. It would happen where I'm in a battle and I want to switch from my bow to my sword and shield again or whatever. And it always ended up that like I thought I did the switch and I did do a switch, but it wasn't the switch I thought. And when I go into attack, I don't use the spear. I'm two-handing my shield and hitting him with just my shield. And that
Yeah,
happened a million times to me. I don't
that
know
sucks.
what it was. Sorry. What about the crouch?
I've been in that boat too, but my solution to that was I usually wouldn't
Switch.
dynamically two-hand. Yeah, I would just have either I'd be two-handing or I wouldn't be, because I would also fuck that up a lot. But crouching, that's on the left control stick press
Oh,
or
and people are accidentally
L3.
pressing it?
It's super easy to accidentally
Right.
press the
Yeah.
control stick in the heat of a crazy fight, and if you do that, now you're slowly crouching instead
Right.
of running away.
Right. I think that it actually happened to me a few times. Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me a bunch. But it was enough to the where some people remapped their buttons to avoid that issue, but wasn't that bad for me.
Okay. I got used to it, so I didn't want to remap it.
So those were the notes I had directly from your review. We both have a series of questions we want to ask each other, so I'll
Right.
let you go first.
Well, I already did one. You want me to do another one?
Go for it. Do all your questions. I'll do all mine after.
Oh, okay. All right. So you said in your review that you felt like the offshoots, such as Sekiro and Bloodborne, are what From Software should be doing. When they make games. Why do you feel that way?
Because
did
I
you feel
felt
that
like I've softened on that stance a little bit, and that's only because I thought, and when I say that, I mean, not necessarily like totally different games, but like Demon Souls to Dark Souls, and Dark Souls to Bloodborne, and Bloodborne to Sekiro. Those were the kinds of changes I was like, this is where the studio is at its strongest. Those were it's because I thought Dark Souls 2 was not a really good example of what should be done with this studio's time.
But what about Dark Souls 3?
Well, I thought Dark Souls 3 was better, but again, I was like, I'd rather have
Something more different.
something else, like something different. And I've said, and I kind of still hold this opinion, is I kind of don't want them to do like a direct sequel to Bloodborne. I want them to do something, different.
Another different one, yeah.
Another different series in a different location with similarly different shakeups to the same formula, if they're still interested, and I'm sure they are because it makes the big money, to that gameplay. And I think Elden Ring is really, really close to Dark Souls, obviously. And a lot of people are just calling it Dark Souls 4, which is, I think it's fair to
I think it's fine too.
say that. Yeah.
Right. It's seriously just Dark Souls with open world now. That's what
it really is. Obviously, though, it's set in a completely different lore. Like, there's no
souls.
Even there's no even like abstract connection between
just
the Souls games. It really is just the core gameplay mechanics.
Right.
And a completely different lore setting.
It's not that wildly different of a setting, in my opinion, even though it's less dark.
That's fair. Also, it is not. It is definitely in the same wheelhouse of like a high fantasy sort of Western themed kingdoms and kings and magicians and things. but there is no connecting thread, even though they were very faint, that they existed between the Dark Souls games.
Right.
Um, those are just not there. Like you can't argue that they're there because it's not
Totally
supposed to be,
different. Yeah.
right?
Different
Uh,
universe.
yeah, basically. So I was kind of just thinking I wanted to make sure that their output wasn't getting stale, that they weren't just kind of catering to fan demand of things that I thought weren't actually what people were coming to these games for. And among those things is, I think, and I still think, the multiplayer in this game is not good.
In
I
what
think
way? Which
I
aspect of it?
think it's just clearly not how the game
Oh, it's supposed
was
to be played.
designed. It's
Uh,
not so much supposed to be played because I think if you want to play with a friend because it's fun, have at it. If you want to summon for help because you need help beating a boss, and also because it's fun to fight some of these guys with other people, that's great. But the AI is in no way, shape, or form accustomed to fighting two people at once.
I
It's
would
just
say that
not designed for it.
that happened. It's still mostly you're right, I think, but I would say it's a lot less so in this game. I feel like
I agree.
because like I mean I noticed it for one thing. For example, there are tons of attacks that bosses do now where they're aiming at one guy, the other guy hits him from the back, and they're
Yeah.
already like aiming their shot to hit the
Yeah.
guy in front of them. And right when they slash, they like do a 180 and hit the
They
guy
turn
behind
around
them
and
as well.
whoop, turn around and hit the guy. Yeah,
Right.
that's
And
true. So
way
they're
more AoE
aggro.
attacks and
Yes,
all kinds of things like that. I kind of feel like they attempted to balance
they did.
for it more this time.
I think they did try, because I think that is still their it's their weakest part of the design of the game. All the other elements of the design are so well crafted.
Mm.
This part of it is where the seams are visible the most. And the PvP in these games, I mean, maybe it's just
Right.
not for me, but I always think that shit is garbage.
I don't like it either because
It's so janky and
well
just
the
like
reason it's janky is because
it never
online,
feels like
right?
you're. Yeah, but even when it is online, it just I feel like I got hit by that attack or he hit me. Like really, that hit or
That's what I
and that
mean. It's because it's online, so there's like this weird lag between you guys. If it was like co-op couch multiplayer, maybe it would work okay. What do you think?
sure. Well, yeah, but there are so many hard counters to everything in this game because it's designed primarily as a PvE experience.
Mm.
All of the equipment has like complete 100% hard counters to itself. So if the
Uh,
guy that you're fighting just is anti your build,
right.
he's
You
fucking
die.
supposed to do?
Right.
Like, I don't know. And a lot of these attacks are so big and ridiculous that you can do. It's like, wow, how am I supposed to?
I mean, but that's how it's supposed to be, right?
I
I mean,
guess it's just
regarding
it feels
builds.
unrefined compared to how that behaves, how that interacts when it comes to fighting the bosses who
Mm.
have health pools the size of an Olympic swimming pool. Like their health totals are 100 times higher than anything you'll ever have
Right.
because the damage you do is insane. And
Right.
you have this little couple hundred HP, and they can hit you and kill you in 3 hits, and that's normal. But when you fight another
Another guy.
person, it's just
They deal
crazy.
as
All
much
that
damage as
balance goes
you.
out the
Yeah.
window. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I get
Yeah.
it. A
It's
lot of people love that stuff. A lot of people have fun with it, but to me, I think that's where there's a lot of focus. There's a lot of demand on that stuff, and I was always fearful that if they were going to iterate on this series instead of innovate and come up
mm.
with new places and new mechanics, that it would become too online focused. And I don't know if it's a founded fear or an unfounded one, but that was kind of part of my initial sentiment there.
I see. Okay. I don't know. I don't really have an opinion about what they should do regarding Souls-like games. I mean, personally, I mean to be honest, I like more straightforward JRPGs a lot more than Souls games. This is
Hmm.
my favorite one so far, but I still would rather play most JRPGs than a Souls game than this game.
Right.
But that's my position. Uh, so I would personally like to just see those guys. Like, have they made any Armored Core games or completely different games that aren't Soulsy at all? Like, I mean, it's been a long time since 3D Dot Game Heroes or Armored Core 5 came out, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Mm,
It's been a long time.
yeah. So I'm kind of waiting for something new like that, to be honest. Okay, I'm gonna go. That's right. So, what did you think of the graphics and the art style? And I guess uh, we should also ask you about your performance. What did you play on?
Right.
And-
So I left this out of my review because I kind of forgot to mention it, honestly. But so I played on my PC on the Steam release. I don't think it's on any of the other PC stores. Maybe it's on Epic or whatever. But I have for people who are in the know about hardware, I have a Intel i7 sixth generation CPU. I have a GTX 1080 GPU, and I have 8 gigs of RAM, I think, at this point, and a solid state drive.
okay.
So by this point, that equals a kind of low medium end computer. Like the
Mm,
1080 GTX card is easily the strongest piece of hardware that I have, and that's really showing its age at this point.
mhm.
Um, but the result is that on paper, my computer is below the minimum specs that they listed for this
Really?
game.
Wow.
Yeah, the minimum specs are really high, and I think that's because, like, what happened with me is if you do run it below specs, you can play the game, and I think you'll have a perfectly okay time. You'll
Mm,
have to probably play on low settings,
right.
and which is what I did.
Okay.
And if you don't, and even if you do, you may still encounter this. The game, in order to save on resources, if it's not receiving enough info to the processor or whatever, it will start culling out, which is making invisible. It will stop rendering certain objects to
Mm,
save on processing power. And it will do that dynamically. And usually, the way games do this, and the way this game does it as well, most of the time, is whatever is furthest away, so stuff you don't
right.
need to see, or whatever is behind you, stuff you can't see,
Right.
it will just stop rendering. The problem is, it was doing this to enemies who were right the fuck in front of me.
Oh my god.
They were invisible, but they were there and they were attacking me.
This happened to you often?
Often enough to where I was playing the game at like whatever the game defaulted me at, which is probably medium settings, to where I had to crank it all the way down to bare bottom low settings.
Okay. So how
And
did
the
it look at bare bottom settings
right,
then?
most of the presentation was fine. Like a
Okay.
lot of the textures were the same or very minimally changed. The shadows were actually still pretty good. Like maybe they were a little harsher around the edge or something.
Hmm.
You know, I'm not Digital Foundry. I'm not going to be able to pick out all of these,
Right.
subtle
Little
little
details.
details here and there. Nor do I really care too much about them. But some of the effects, like the way the light interacts with the leaves on trees, was real ugly at low settings, like
Oh.
really ugly. And a couple things here and there were a little unfortunate that I had to play with that on, but I got over it pretty quickly, and I honestly forgot until I was writing this review that that's the situation I was in.
Okay.
Performance wise, like frame rate wise, okay. I think I was at 60 frames a second.
Nice.
I have a 1440p monitor, so that's what I had it running at, and I was using a controller.
Hmm.
And what else?
I think that's
Other
good.
than
Hmm.
a couple stutters here, like whenever you would get to an area where the game was going to load more of the level, it might stutter and then catch up. That was something a lot of people were complaining a lot about because I think some people had a real big issue with that. It happened very occasionally for me.
Okay. I played the PS4 version on a PS4 Slim, and it was a mostly stable 30 FPS. I wish it was
Hmm.
60, but oh well. But I mean, it played fine at 30. I don't think the 30 FPS contributed at all to the delay in the pressing the circle button and the roll.
Probably not. Yeah.
Um, and I had a few freezes, like 5 total, I think. Like totally hard frozen, can't do anything, have to quit out the game and start over or come
I
back
had
in.
about the same amount.
Okay, so you can expect, so audience, you can expect a freeze around once per every 20 hours.
Yeah, mine came like yours. Mine came more in certain areas than others. So I think certain areas are less inherently stable. I guess I
Yeah,
don't
for me
know.
the worst area was that capital city, Lindell.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep. There, I
me
crashed
too.
a couple times in a very specific area twice
Oh
in the
wow.
same area,
Okay.
and that happened in Dark Souls 3 early in release.
Oh
There was
really?
actually a bonfire. I don't remember it anymore, but it was so bad that if I rested, I couldn't use that bonfire.
Oh
I
wow.
ran past it as fast as I could because the longer you were there,
The more
the more
likely it was to
likely the
happen.
game would crash. It was so often that I just never used that bonfire.
At least it was an obvious place. Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Okay, yeah, and overall, you thought I guess you talked about the graphics. So, what do you think of the art style? For me, the graphics were basically good. They looked fine. I mean, I don't really have
Yeah,
any
I think they were
comments.
very good. I mean, they looked really nice. All the detail is great. Art
Right,
style wise, and especially considering, to your point in your review, that this is an open world game, a lot of it looked handmade. Like there were
right. Like
not a lot of reused assets. Like there were definitely reused assets.
there
Like
were reused
there have to
bosses.
be.
Oh,
There definitely were reused bosses. Absolutely. Not even palette swapped. Just the
right.
same
The
guy
same guy,
again.
just different
Here's
stats.
the putrid tree, whatever the hell guy for the sixth time.
Right,
Uh, but there were definitely reused like graphical assets, like those jutting rocks that come out of the ground.
right. Those are cool.
Those are
Yeah,
just they're everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. But yeah, I think the actual like design and the layout of the land is really cool. Like the vistas that you get
right.
in a lot of the areas are really awesome to look at, and they do a good job of being like, where should I go? Go over here. What's that thing? Way up on the hill. Oh, I'm curious. Let's go over there.
Totally. Okay, you were just as impressed as I was. I would say the art style is not that different from even from other previous Souls
Right.
games because
I don't think they've changed very much at all.
right, and one of the reasons for that I'm sure is because Miyazaki already liked George R. Martin before it was cool to like him. Like didn't he isn't his first thing that he released that was inspired by George R. Martin way before Game of Thrones? I think it was.
I couldn't tell you if that's who it was from, but he did talk a lot about how Western fiction that he wasn't fully able to read because of the language barrier was part of the inspiration
Right.
for
The
the
story
sort
way.
of the way he unfolds his stories, which are in bits and pieces.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Next question. Uh so did you find something specific that makes you think the George R. Martin collaboration really paid off?
Yeah, and I guess this actually does fold into one of the questions I was going to ask you, which was just broadly about the story. So we'll roll that into the same discussion here,
Okay.
and it's the story. So I think that the if you compare the story in this game to Bloodborne or to Dark Souls for sure, any of the Dark Souls games, they're way more character driven in terms of the overall arcing plot. There are people who have
Mm-hmm.
marriages to other people who are the heads of these dynasties. They have children who have specific names
Wait, wait,
and
wait,
they
wait,
go
wait.
on to do things.
Are these people that we're meeting now or from a long time ago?
I'm talking about the general story in the people like Radigan and Radon
The
and
bosses, huh?
Renala, and those are all the major plot characters.
Okay,
I
but
said NPC, right?
all those marriages and things happened a long time ago, or did they happen during the
They
course of the
happened a
game?
long time ago.
Okay, I see. All right.
So if I don't know how, uh, or rather what you heard or know of,
I
but
know nothing about the story.
well, in terms of the development of the story, what George R. R. Martin did specifically,
I don't know.
he didn't work on like the game, right? Like he didn't
Right.
say this is what Radon is going to look like and
Okay.
this is when this boss fight's going to happen. Like he didn't do any of that. Or he didn't even really talk about the world or sitting on the world design. What he did and what they used him for, I guess you could say, is he wrote a sort of like a lore Bible for the world of Elden Ring.
Okay.
He came up with that concept of the Elden Ring
And the
and
grace and all that.
the grace and land between. He also came up with most of the characters. Like we're never going to know 100% because we're never going to get access to what he
The
wrote.
file. Yeah.
But he wrote whatever he wrote, and then the From Software team and Miyazaki took his work, added onto it, and then the events of what he wrote about happen obviously in the game that we play, which are all way like generations, not generations, but like a solid 100 years at least after the events of what George R. R. Martin wrote about.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And then I'm sure they modified whatever they needed to fit their design for the game, the final product. I'm sure they did, but that's basically what it comes to. And where that comes through and why I think it works is because I think it adds a layer of kind of human, I don't know, like it, it kind of grounds some of the lore setting
Mm.
in ways where it's still very abstract because like you said, it's still mysterious and you still want to go online and watch videos on who the hell's what's going on and all that stuff. So still, all that is still there.
Yeah.
But personally, I thought it was more engaging because I was more curious to find out. I had more of the questions in my head that I wanted to ask the internet about with this game than I did about Bloodborne. Like with Bloodborne and Dark Souls, I didn't even know what the hell anything was.
Okay.
Like I couldn't ask like who's who. I'm like I don't know who is who. Like I don't even know. Now I'm like what was Radon? What was Radigan? Who were these people? What's the relationship to America, Queen America, and all that stuff?
Mm.
And those were some of the loaded questions I had in my head because there were so many people that were brought up over and over, and a lot of the names do sound similar, so it's kind
Way
of hard to
similar.
keep them all in your head. But I for me, and also the story about how it's like these warring nations fighting each other, and there's like this sort of ebb and flow of power in the lands between the world that we're in. That felt very like George R. R. Martin set up some of that architecture of the conflict involved,
Mm.
and then where I think From Software stepped in and added their flavor was all of these like elden gods and things that they added on top of all that. I think that's their work
You
because
think so? Mm.
that all feels very Bloodborne to me.
Okay.
Like the two fingers, that whole thing, and
Oh.
the Elden Beast and thing. I think those were their additions. Those feel more like what From Software would make. Because the two fingers felt a lot like the snake guy in Dark Souls.
Oh,
Remember
I
that
see what you're
guy?
saying. Yeah, 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 I remember that
It
guy.
feels
Yeah.
more like that, like a prophet, this weird sort of primordial prophet thing that people go to It's
Those
like
fingers.
wise and weird looking. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like that was their design and their
Okay.
addition to George Martin's work. And the Erd tree was probably part of his design, but they added on to it with these various gods and things. But I guess since we're in the neighborhood of the same question,
Hmm.
you were saying you had no idea what was kind of going on with the question. Do you have any thoughts about it? Did it
Um.
resonate with you at all?
I didn't really. Yeah. I guess I prefer to have the story a little bit more in my face.
Sure.
Um. Yeah. I don't know. I've never been the person. Like I was always impressed when I found the first, Dark Souls lore video, and I'm like,
Right.
what? How did you figure out
Right.
all this stuff? And
Yeah.
it was all in the item descriptions. Oh, okay,
Right. Yeah.
that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I never got that deep into it. I guess because it was never really the ideal, Zoltan type of world. Because it's
Sure.
pretty dark and all that, which is not my
Hmm.
thing. Um, so yeah, and my favorite thing about Souls games is not even the combat itself as much as just the customization. You can
Right.
the build making a build.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's what I like, and trying to get strong with the build or whatever. And so, yeah, I didn't really worry about this story. And as it went on and on and
Hmm.
on, really the only thing about the story that I thought that kind of stood out to me, like that I kind of wanted to now learn a little bit more, was that you fight some. There was two things, I guess. One was when you arrive at that place that looks exactly like the Round Table Hall
Oh
in
yeah.
Lindell, but it's like it's not the same one. It's a different one because there's
Hmm.
nobody there. I thought when I went back to like the teleport one, it would be this very same one and that they'd all be gone in that one too, but they were there and it was like different.
Hmm.
So I don't know what those. I don't really understood what those two different. The difference one is. It's like a different dimension or something maybe. And then also I was kind of enjoying when like I was fighting people who were in that hall. For example, you fight that all-knowing dude. And I
Right.
heard I heard online later I think that like he uses all the attacks of every boss you've ever beaten or something.
I think he uses the remembrances or something. He uses a bunch of spells and shit. Yeah,
Yeah.
he may use all their boss moves. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're right.
I he was probably supposed to be amazing and epic, but I totally slaughtered his ass no problem.
Me
So,
too. He
you too.
was just way too. He probably was supposed to be kind of cool, but I think he was more of a story boss because he was so you could just stagger him
Right,
so
I just walked
easily.
up to him and stabbed him a bunch and he
Right?
died.
Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, he killed me twice, but then, third time, it wasn't that hard.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, I thought that was cool that, I had to fight him as a boss. But yeah, I didn't really worry about are they all trying to become Elden Lord? I mean, they're all trying to be Elden Lord too. Should I let them be the Elden Lord? Oh, the other thing I
What
kind of
does
cared
it
about.
even mean to
Right.
become Elden Lord? Right? Like
Right. Is there
so.
an
Right.
Elden Lord now? Is that why the world is all dark? Is it like Dark
Right.
Souls where there's a thing that's making everybody into zombies or something?
Right.
So the other thing I cared about, the thing I cared about the most now that I think about it though, is there's this scene where I took what's her name? Is it Melina? Yeah, it's Melina. Isn't it Melina?
Melina. Melina, I think, is usually how the cadence or the emphasis.
Melina? Really?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
what she says in the voice acting.
Did she say that? Okay.
I think
So
so.
Melina, I took her to that volcano thing, that giant crater at the top of the snowy area after the fire
Uh
giant boss battle, and she's like, "Are you ready to commit a sin?" And I'm like,
huh.
I think the choices
Let's
were
do it, baby.
yes or I'd like you to wait,
Uh
and I'm like, I think so. And
huh.
she burned the goddamn tree, the magical tree, that the
uh,
air tree. It's in the middle of the whole world that you can
hmm.
see, and it's like the most outstanding thing of the game. And your whole goal is you're supposed to go to it.
Hmm.
Um, she burnt that thing, and I'm wondering now: is there a way to not burn that, or was I supposed to do that? Also, did she die? And was I? Is there a way to do it without killing her? Like, there's nobody I cared about more than her because she became my maiden
Right.
and
Yes.
gave me a horse, and she's
Uh huh.
cute. So
Uh
that's
huh.
it.
Right. Exactly. Um,
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of if you Vatu Vidya already did a thing like recently, like I think either today or yesterday,
Mm.
and he's got, I'm sure, more to come. But he did a really good initial breakdown of the story. I'm sure if you were to watch that, you'd be pretty impressed by some of the stuff because there's some really interesting, like who's who and why. Like what once you do know what their motivations are, they're pretty cool.
Okay.
In
Yeah.
terms of who is who and some of the enduring mysteries of the story, because there's just some things we don't have any info on,
Right.
and the biggest one, I'm not even sure if it even um, stood out was the second to last boss fight. Who are you
Um.
fighting?
What? The second to last, the one that was right before the Elden
The
Beast.
Elden Beast.
The one before the Elden Beast was list some names. I can't remember the name. It was just like this.
Well,
It was this
it's
dude who had like
yeah,
the Elden Ring
red
in his
hair.
body, in his
Yeah.
chest.
So if you recall the cutscene, and this happens quite quickly, and you probably skip the cutscene every time when you go to retry the boss fight. So
Okay.
you probably don't remember it, but you see the person up on the ring, right?
Yeah, I
And
saw that. It was a woman.
it was a woman.
Yeah.
Turns into a man
It turned into a man. That's correct.
with red hair.
With red hair. That's correct.
Right. And the significance of that is apparently really like big
Oh,
as to
okay.
why that is. And there's a statue in Lindell, the capital city, that has a statue of Queen Merica, who is the original like big ruler of that area,
Hmm.
of the whole place. Um, and there is a plaque there that says something like regression will show the true way or whatever. And
Hmm.
there's this spell that you can get somewhere around about when you're in that area called laws of regression.
Huh.
And if you perform that spell in front of that statue, it turns into Radigan.
And then you have to fight him?
No, it's just the statue
Oh, the
turns
statue turns into a
into a
Radigan
statue
statue.
of Radigan, who is
Okay.
obviously a guy who, and if you noticed or if you remember at all, Merica is married to Radigan. That's her
Okay.
husband. So the
Okay.
significance of how or why they're the same person is apparently something that people don't have any solid answers
Wait,
on.
wait, 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 wait. Was Radigan not the wolf boss?
That was Radon.
No, I didn't fight Radon. Radon was the Star Scourge, wasn't he?
Yeah, I'm not sure who you're referring to then.
The wolf boss in the Rhea Lucaria Magic Academy. He's like
No,
a
probably
wolf.
something with a similar name, but that's
Okay,
not
different
Radigan.
one. Okay, hi.
Yeah. But right. So Merica and Radigan are supposed to be husband and wife, but they have completely different motivations. Merica broke the Elden Ring and caused most of the events that we're involved in,
Huh.
and Radigan tried to piece it back together and wasn't successful. And it's very convoluted and weird.
And it's
But
interesting if you hear it, but if you don't totally look everywhere for it, you won't get it, right?
yeah, and there are pieces and parts of it that are genuinely like obscure, even if you have all the info and you were
Right.
sleuthing around super extra hard and you were reading every item, fucking, Godwin's toenail
Yeah.
item description, right?
Yeah.
So, even with that info on your side, there's still just genuine blind spots that you will have because the game just doesn't give you the information.
Okay.
So the lore videos out there are really fun.
Yeah,
That's all
I
I'll
think I'll go
say.
watch some later.
They're really fun.
Okay. So what this blew my mind when I read your freaking review, dude. You said you like explored a lot of Caelid before going on
God,
to all the other
yes.
areas. And
Oh my God.
what could you possibly accomplish there so early in the game, dude?
Well, this is a crazy story,
Let me
but
hear it, dude. This is what
when you're
podcasts are made for, dude.
I know. When you're starting out the game, right?
Hmm.
You're at that area where what's his face, the white mask guy, Vare or whatever, who talks
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
That's at the first site of grace, or maybe the second one,
Yeah.
third one, or whatever. Right outside the cave.
Right outside the cave, yes.
So they're clearly indicating to you to go forward, north toward the castle. And I was like, well, This is a big open world game. I'm not just going to go right down the critical path. I'm going to go explore and find some cool items. And I did. I went down to the coast where there were some things that I found. And
Yeah, I went to the
I
coast.
went
Yeah.
off to the east where there's a lake and there's like a burnt up castle, like ruins of a castle on this lake
Oh,
just to the east.
the thing that happened to you, I think, is gonna happen. Is the thing that happened to me.
You get teleported.
Yep. And you open a
Right.
chest, and all of a sudden, you wake up in Caelid, inside of
Now,
a
not
cave.
only, right. So this was so early on in the game, I didn't have a horse.
Oh, right.
Okay. You have to rest at the site of grace right outside the gate of Stormvale before Melina will show up and say, "Here's a horse."
Right. And so you hadn't done that yet.
I had not done that because that's actually a good trek far away from where you're at. Like you kind of have to want to get to where they're telling you to go, and it's usually not my inclination. I usually want to get everywhere else that I can go. Like I wasn't trying to go somewhere I shouldn't be. I was trying to
Just
get
explore
everything I
around.
could get reasonably before I got to the first area. Right.
But you
I want to
went
get all the
somewhere
cool shit.
unreasonable, dude. What could you do in the
I
unreasonable
went
world?
somewhere unreasonable, and the only reason I stayed there is because I didn't realize I could leave.
You what? Well, did you found the site of grace inside that cave, right?
The game doesn't tell you that you can fast travel until you rest at the First America Church. I didn't know I could fast travel. It
Dude,
never outright tells you.
that must have been amazing.
So, what happened was
Yeah.
I rested there. First of all, I found out way later in the game there are several chests that transport you like that. You
Right.
can avoid that effect.
I
You
found
just
that
get out
out
of the
too.
way.
If you just get out of the
You
way,
just
yeah.
get out of the way. So I didn't do that, obviously. And so I'm warped into where you end up, which is like a cave. And I'm outside of that rot swamp that gives you scarlet rot, which
Yes.
is a really nasty, nasty. It's basically toxic from the first Dark Souls game.
Yeah.
Really crazy debuff that drains your health like crazy.
Right.
And I was in that area running around in the fucking swamp, avoiding, like, hopping up on twigs and branches to avoid getting the debuff, dying there a few times, actually managing to pick up some items and some stuff. Like,
Okay.
it's not impossible to do this. And then I realized I kind of hit a dead end because, like, there's nowhere to go if you are over there. And then there were other enemies that were really strong. I'm like, this is too much. So then I went back to where I was. There's that sorcerer town, Celia, with all
Yeah.
the ghost fucking magicians. I
How
spent an incredible amount of time in there, dying and whatever. And then the thing that ticked over in my head that I was like, I should not be here is because I still didn't have a way of leveling up.
Oh, whoa. That's right,
If
huh?
you don't talk to Melina at that site of grace, you don't have a horse. The
And you
not
don't
being
live.
able to fast travel, that was on me because I just didn't notice. And you can't fucking level up.
Oh
So
my
there I
god.
was, super duper early in the game, carrying 40,000 runes on me.
Wow. You could have leveled up a
Trying,
lot.
I could have leveled up a whole lot. Of course, all that was lost because I
Yeah.
died and whatever. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm doing something wrong. I'm no longer where I think I need to be. So then I run all the way back.
To Limgrave.
I ran back.
That's awesome. That must have been awesome. Was that awesome?
It was so, it was in the moment, it was really frustrating
Right.
because those giant dogs and birds are quite a bit faster than you if you're on foot. Because remember, I don't have a horse.
Yep.
And I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. How is this game doing this to me? There's no way this is intent. Like, what am I missing? What am I missing? And it wasn't until I got in Limgrave, like, pretty close to where I'm supposed to be, to the point where I'm like, there's no way this was intentional. Like, obviously it was intentional that you got teleported. Like, that had to have been intentional.
Right.
There's no way they just didn't think, oh, gosh, no one will get teleported this early. Like, of course you will.
Right.
A lot of people did. But the thing that they didn't account for was they didn't tell you you could fucking fast travel
Before
until
that.
the next site of grace after the one that they should have told you at that one.
Yeah, they should have told you at that one. Yes.
And the whole tutorial menu pops up, and they're like, by the way, you can fast travel whenever the fuck you want. You don't have to be at the site. Like, go here and look in this menu. I'm like, well, fuck.
Great
So
story.
that was an adventure. Yes.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Next question. What was the hardest boss you beat solo, and how did you beat it?
There were, gosh, hardest boss solo. I don't know if it was the hardest one that I beat, but all of those putrid tree, whatever the fuck bosses.
Preacher
That,
tree. You mean the ulcerated root guy? I remember.
yeah,
Is it
those
that one?
guys.
They like
Yeah.
slither all over the place, really
Yeah,
rap.
yeah, 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 yeah. They're really fast.
Yeah.
And they grab you and whatever.
Mm.
That one
What?
I got really good at doing because there were a lot of them. There really were like 6 of them.
I only met one
Uh,
of them.
oh, really? They
Yeah.
were pretty common in like the underground dungeon areas, like the optional areas.
Okay.
And then the can't remember the name of it. The star, like you
Star
know those
Scourge
guys that
Radon.
no, not the Star Scourge. Although I did do that solo.
Good job.
And the reason I did that solo is because for me, it was really hard to not get hit by like a random attack when it was, there was like an ally
Mm.
and then he would like switch aggro to you. It was way harder to gauge what he was doing if he was constantly switching targets.
Okay.
So I just had to got his, patterns down and memorized when, where to go. And the hardest attack he has are those 4 floating orbs that seek in on you.
Huh.
You know which one I'm talking about?
I never found that guy, so I don't know.
Radon? He's like a story boss.
Yeah,
thought
I
you
heard
had
all
to kill
about him, but I don't know where he is. I
Oh
beat
my
the game, yo.
gosh.
I don't know where he
I
is.
thought you had to fight him.
I thought I did
Wow.
too, but I never found him.
That's interesting. I didn't know. Wow. I guess you're right. There's nothing stopping you from just going up to the tree. Huh. I think you only need to kill 2 of the main bosses for the game to give you whatever it does to move you forward.
Mm.
So you killed Renala, right?
I killed her. I also killed the
Morgott.
Godric the Grafted
And Godric.
and Margit.
Margit.
And who else is there? Oh,
Uh,
Malaketh.
oh, you got Malekith. Okay.
Yeah. Was he not
Yeah,
required?
that's a story. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you get Malenia?
No, I didn't find that person.
Oh my gosh.
I hear
She
she's amazing.
is. Holy shit. Were you in a place called the Halig Tree?
I don't think I went to the Halig tree.
It's a
It sounds
separate,
familiar,
it's like a
though.
It's a different Erd tree. It's a completely separate Erd tree that's like north of the real Erd tree, but it's
Huh.
like rotting and falling apart.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, I don't think I've been there.
Crazy place. That is, I think it's the biggest optional area, I guess, in the game. And Malenia, not Millennia, but Malenia, M-A-L. She is the character that is on some of the promotional art. She has like the Viking helmet.
Oh, that's her, huh?
That's her.
Okay.
And she is easily, I think by most accounts, the hardest boss in the game.
I think I saw a video. She's the one that does that freaking wild katana swings, like, right?
The biggest piece of shit part of that fight, though, is she heals every time she hits you.
Whoa. So you have to dodge.
So, yeah. You can't be like a shield user. You'll never win the fight. You will literally never win.
I'm a shield user.
So am I, for the most part, unless I have to not be.
Can you
But,
parry those things? Can you parry her?
There might be 1 or 2 attacks that you can parry, but she does that giant multi-hit attack. That's just a canned animation. You can't parry that shit. Like, no way.
No way, right? Yeah.
So you have to get out of the way of those attacks. And even if you survive them, she probably got half her fucking health back. So it really is a rough
So you're supposed to
fucking
get her
fight.
last, is what you're saying.
Probably. I mean, I summoned for help on her because I didn't have a good enough build to get in enough damage and survive it.
So
I
what is
guess if
the
I,
intended method? To just dodge roll that thing a lot?
yeah, you just have to avoid her attacks. It's
Hmm.
possible,
It's
but
possible, right? Okay.
learning how to do it is really hard. The thing that made it easier for me was I had a um a weapon art called Quick Step,
Oh yeah, I know that one.
which makes your dodge into like a really long dash away or whatever direction
I should use
with
that.
iframes,
Hmm.
and it uses like a small amount of FP. So that was enough for me to just get out of the way of every attack she ever had.
Oh, I should try that next time.
Yeah, and the only trick is you have to press a different button and not the dodge roll button. So
Oh yeah, that's right. That's weird. Okay.
that can trip you up a little. But once you get the hang of doing it that way, the quick step is super duper good.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, that fight was crazy. She gives you 280,000 runes when you kill
Nice.
her. So yeah, she's definitely intended to be like a big fucking deal.
Okay. So who was the hardest when you fought solo? I guess those
I think
ulcerated
it's
roots.
the illustrated routes I liked. I got really good at doing solo. Like something about their timing, I was just really on point with it all the time. I never needed to summon for help on them. But the one I guess that was, I think, hardest were they're those bugs that hang from the ceiling, like the big fucking bugs that hang
Yeah,
from the
they're
ceiling
not
that
bosses.
shoot.
They just there, right?
Right, they're just there, but there is a boss version of them. It's called
Oh,
Estelle, the Natural Born of the Void,
cool.
is the name of the boss, and it's that enemy, but you have to fight
Harder.
it for real,
Yeah.
and it's not just hanging from a ceiling.
Do you have?
And
Oh, okay. Do you have
it,
barriers to hide behind?
mm-mm.
Oh
So it
man.
doesn't do that attack. It's like a full-on boss, regular ass boss fight.
Okay.
And the thing that's crazy about it is it does these giant like area clearing ground slams, and
Oh.
all of it is magic damage. So I had to respec my character for magic defense.
Oh,
I had to get
Mo.
a magic defense shield, which worked really well.
Okay. I need
And
that.
yeah, and I just getting the timing down. I had so little time to actually attack him. It was, I don't know. That was the one I did solo that I think was the hardest.
Okay. That's cool. Last one. What was your experience with summoning spirits? Because I heard you say,
Hmm.
I read you what you said, um, and I heard from other sources the same thing that those summoned spirits that you get can totally onzor the bosses for you. And
Kinda.
I ended up maxing out the jellyfish.
Ha!
And like, I don't know what you're talking about, is what I want to say. Like, he literally just drew the boss's attention occasionally, which for a good player is all you need to totally destroy a boss. But for me, it
Right.
wasn't enough.
Yeah, so the short answer to that is there are better summons. Like
Okay.
much better summons. The earliest summon, and this is actually one of the benefits to my crazy Caelid story running around, is one of the summons I got earliest was the
The wolves.
Scarlet Rot Dog.
Oh, a scarlet rot dog. Okay.
Yeah, you can easily miss a lot of these, so I'm sure I missed a bunch of them.
Right.
But near where you get dropped off on that area, there's a Scarlet Rot Dog that summon that you can get.
Okay.
Obviously, when it attacks enough, it deals Scarlet Rot to the
What?
boss.
Dude, I want that.
And there, one of the builds I had, we can talk about builds in a minute. One of the builds I had was a weapon, I think called the Ant Stinger, which
Hmm.
I then added a weapon art to so that when I hit an enemy enough, it did poison and scarlet rot.
Whoa. So it must have
Yeah.
had one of the uh did it come with a status effect already innate to the blade?
Yeah,
Which
it
one?
does scarlet rot normally.
And then you added poison to it with a
Yeah.
mash. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So this dog, early on was wrecking everything because it does kind of a lot of damage, and the Scarlet Rot that it does kills fucking bosses. It killed Morgott.
Oh, whoa.
And even more crazy than that, Godfrey, Godric, rather,
Uh,
the first major boss that you're supposed to encounter,
grafted
the
guy.
grafted,
Yeah.
yeah. I skipped his second phase.
Oh, whoa. Because you killed him too much.
Actually, what happened is, and I think maybe they may have patched this out, is if you don't deal direct damage to him, if you debuff him with a Scarlet Rot, for example,
Oh, that doesn't
and then
count, huh?
it never triggers the second phase.
Oh, wow.
He just slowly dies.
That's amazing, dude. I want to do
The
that.
the whole cutscene never triggered, and I got through that boss thinking, well, I teased him a little bit, whatever, playing the game, and then sooner or later, as I'm reading about parts of the game I've already played, I hear people talking about how he had a big dragon arm. I'm like, what? No, he didn't.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? And he's like, dude, there was a whole cutscene. I'm like, what are you talking about? And so I looked it up, and sure enough, I
Yep.
skipped that entire thing.
Amazing. Yeah, the
Yeah.
first time surprisingly, I actually arrived in the area directly behind that castle, Liurny of the Lakes. I found that area
Mhm.
before I ever beat Margit to enter the castle. So
Right. That's crazy.
yeah, just through like exploring, it was pretty fun
Yeah.
actually. And so, but I got scared because I was. This is nothing compared to what you did. But when I reached Liurny of the Lakes, I was like, I'm not supposed to be here, am I? I just
Right.
left thinking it would be
Right.
too difficult for me. And I remember that the balance that Margit is definitely. I declared him too much of a balance of a difficulty spike because of what I saw in Liurny of the Lakes after that. Because
Right.
if the game is going to be roughly that hard all the time after this, and admittedly a lot of the bosses were as hard as he was, but like none of the other enemies were like needed the kind of skills or stats that you
Hmm.
needed for him. I was like, now that I think about it, I could have just gone over there and gone through a lot of that area no problem before fighting
Right.
Margit.
Probably. I think that's easily possible. I'm sure a fair number of people have done that. And
Yeah.
so then you have to fight him again, Morgott. It's like a harder version
Right.
of
It's
that
like a
fight.
harder version. And then the last, or that was the last version of him. No, no, no. I feel like there were three versions of this guy. Were there not?
Well, he has two phases and his final encounter, I think.
That was Morgott, right?
Hmm.
That's right. Yeah, that's different from. Okay, I'm thinking of the third guy who grabs you. He's like freaking the guy. One of the last bosses. I can't remember which one, but his name. But
Horalu,
Horalu, that's the guy. Yeah, you mentioned him.
the warrior.
Yeah, he just grabs you. He like takes off his shirt
Yeah.
and grabs you. That's all he
He
does.
just gets all pissed off and starts throwing you around.
Yeah, he's like just a normal dude. It's just he's really big and buff, and he
Yeah.
just grabs you. I love that.
So just as like a very brief tangent, do you know why that whole cutscene happens with that lion?
I do not know why.
It's a really cool brief thing. So he's a character who is just like completely consumed and dominated by like bloodlust and a need to kill and
Oh, whoa.
conquer and whatever.
Okay.
So in order to become Elden Lord, he was the first Elden Lord,
Right.
and become essentially like a king of a nation, he somehow bound the spirit, the lion that you see,
Hmm.
to him, which physically holds him back
From killing
from
you.
becoming a crazy psychopath. And
Whoa.
so you see it in the cutscene, like holding on to his shoulders and his like waist and everything.
Oh, and then he
And I
takes it
guess
off, rips it off, or
he
something.
rips
Yeah.
and just like kills it and rips it off and turns back into his actual self, which is Horalu, that's his real name.
Right.
And he turns back into this crazy, just like bloodlust warrior.
And he's like his body was all red. I feel like.
Yeah, he
Just
had this blood on him and he was all like, yeah, red and whatever. Crazy, crazy guy.
so that's all of my questions for you.
All right.
You had some
So
good
yeah, we
stories.
already talked. We already talked a little bit about the story that question that I was going to ask you and the Millennia fight. Um, So, yeah, I think you mentioned this briefly as well. How much did you participate online? Did you play any PvP even like accidentally? Like, did you get invaded?
Yes, I did. So a thing I noticed, um, I think is I noticed it correctly, is that I don't think you get invaded by actual real life people unless you summon a real life person. That's what it's I think happened to me. Like I would off.
Right.
Would you think so too?
I think it's very, very rare.
Okay.
I think I've heard stories that it is possible. Obviously, you'd be playing online, but the only times I've been invaded were in that same circumstance. There are scripted NPC invasions,
Right. Those are different.
but
Yeah.
those are different.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think that's an improvement.
I agree.
Hmm. You know, the
Um,
levels are already difficult enough. Do we
so
need?
you played online with like all the message symbols and everything around?
Yeah, exactly. I was reading all the
Right.
messages of
Oh, okay. You
try
were
fingers butthole and
right,
stuff like
yes,
that.
exactly, correct. So I played offline pretty quickly. I switched it offline because on my first playthrough of these games, I usually like to not see those hints. I don't know
Oh,
why necessarily, but
don't you want
I
to see before you enter the door? Be wary of left. I was so happy every time I read "Be wary of left." I was like, "Thank you, praise your message."
I kind of wanted to get smacked by whatever's to my left on my own,
That's
or
awesome.
like be like poke around my head around the corner or whatever. Although I do appreciate that the Try Fingers butthole is, that you gotta be in there for that. That's part of the package.
Oh yeah. And every time there's like an animal, especially a turtle, but
Oh
any
my
animal,
God.
somebody writes the word dog next to it. So now
Yeah,
every animal is a dog now.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Those turtles. Oh my God,
yeah.
so majestic.
So I did play online quite a bit because I needed help because I'm a noob, not actually a new player. I just suck. I mean, and yeah. At first, I tried a little bit of invading as well, and I did manage to kill a couple
Oh
people.
really?
Yeah, just for
Wow.
fun of it, just to see what happened.
Oh.
And yeah, I did manage to kill a few people.
Hmm.
I was surprised at how well my shield and spear combo works against people, even people who are using that crazy millennia to double
Oh,
katana attack.
shit. Yeah.
Right, even that because they don't expect that they're going to be getting hit while they're hitting me with that because I can
I
block
guess
and attack
so.
at the same time.
Right. Yes.
So
Yes. Yes. Yes.
they hit
Yes.
blood loss one time and they start freaking the hell out and backing up and trying to
Yep.
heal. And so
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
actually took out a good number of people who invaded me like that, and I invaded a couple people just to see what it was like for the fun
So
of it.
your spear had blood loss on it?
Yeah, I saw a build video. I did use some online
Hmm.
resources partway through because
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I need an excuse or anything. If I want the help or whatever, it's fine.
Yeah. Whatever.
But to be honest, that's not the reason why I use them. I seriously, this is the type of person I've been ever since the beginning. I would go buy a new game at back when it was like at game stores, right? And I would
Mm-hmm.
buy like a new PS1 game, like Final Fantasy 8 or Xenogears or something. No, let's go with Star Ocean 2 for PS1. And
Uh-huh.
they had the freaking guide there too. And I buy
Mm-hmm.
the guide too. And I'd set it down and I'd be like, hey, not gonna look at that until I beat the game once. Because
Right.
I should do it
I
myself
used to
first.
do something very similar back in the day.
Right. And the thing is, though, not because I'm like having a particularly hard time. I'm just dying to know what all the secrets are. That's the most
Right.
fun thing in the world to me. So,
Mm-hmm.
so I looked up some stuff here and there, and
Mm-hmm.
there were a couple times that I saw like rune farm videos, and I was like, I think I'll go do that later.
Mm-hmm.
So I did
Mm-hmm.
some of that. But what was I getting at with that? I don't know. I don't remember what I was getting at. But I did play online with some people. And I did summon several people to help me with bosses that were not going well for me. And in the
Right.
end, Tark's Gauntlet, the YouTuber, helped me beat Margit, the Fell Omen. Even though
Nice.
I came so close, he was within one hit of dying during one of my solo attempts, though, and it was like a really epic looking battle. I think I have a video of it back there somewhere, but Ah.
Well, I guess we can take this opportunity to transition into just talking about some of our builds.
Okay.
So you mentioned you,
I use like 3 builds actually.
yeah, I had a fair number of them as well, and this is the most dynamic my build has ever been in a Souls-like game,
Yeah. Upon
for sure.
reflection, I kind of feel like there was a moment where the game was telling you. I mean, they don't really tell you. They could tell you more. I want to say, but there was a moment where I felt like, you know what? I think they actually don't want us to just stick to a single build. And that
Right.
moment was when you're in like the very first mine, like in the very beginning in Limgrave. The first time you find a mine and you see those little miner dudes with their backs turned to you, um, you can like stab them in the back and they'll take
Hmm.
a lot of damage, but they might not die in one hit. Um, so you have to hit him again. And when you try to hit him again, your weapon will bounce right off of them.
Right.
And so I'm like, are you serious? Like, what am I supposed to do? Oh, I'm sorry. Now I remember why I was telling you about online resources. I saw a build video that said this is a good spear because it has innate blood loss damage. That's what I was getting at with that.
Huh.
Sorry.
Nice.
So I used what's it called? The cross Naginata or something?
Oh, I know which one you're talking about.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah. Yeah, it's got like a plus sign for a blade.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah. So when I got there, I was thinking, I was thinking maybe I should just switch to the club. I have a spiked club in my inventory.
Right.
And sure enough, a unupgraded club dealt way more damage
Yep.
than my far greatly upgraded sword.
Yep. 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 Yep.
And
Yep.
so that was a moment that I thought to myself, I guess we have to like be a little bit more jack of all trades
A
ish.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even try magic though, so that might have helped me more maybe, but I didn't.
Maybe this game is very. It really wants you to use some kind of magic.
You think
Like it
so?
just.
Yeah.
And there's so many magic weapons and magic related things in this game, especially when you get to the Raya Lucaria area. It's just everywhere, everywhere.
Right.
Um, so you were
Yeah. So
using,
I guess I should go through them all. Yeah. So whenever I went into like one of those mines or an enemy that seemed to need strike, I would switch to a spiked club, which I had upgraded kind of far.
mhm.
Um, in the very beginning, I was going as much as bow as I could. I wanted to use a
Oh
sword and then
wow.
switch to bow, or use a bow as much as I could, and then switch to sword when
Hmm.
they got close. Is what I wanted to
So you
do.
were crafting your arrows mostly, you
So I
think,
was,
or
dude, I was like farming animal dudes. Yeah,
oh boy,
eagles for that. You want the eagle
nice.
feathers so you can
Yeah, you
get the
do.
fletching to make the arrows go further and stuff. And my favorite thing in the world is like to be stealthy and snipe things.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
I once I found the longbow, I was super happy. I bought that. I just upgraded the longbow. It freaking pulls back the arrow so slowly. So you cannot it's super hard to use in boss battles, but I did anyway. And then eventually I found the power shot ability. Oh man. You could do some
Oh,
pretty decent damage with a bow and
huh,
save a lot of arrows. You just have to use a lot of FP
right,
doing that. And insane range when you do it that way.
huh,
And I combined that with the increase the bow's range talisman or whatever.
mm,
So yeah, I was like the ultimate sniper. But unfortunately, there's lots of times you can't really be a sniper, like boss
mm-hmm,
battles, for example.
sure,
So
yeah,
so that wasn't so I couldn't just use that exclusively, unfortunately. But
mm-hmm.
yeah, that works on a lot of enemies. Also, an interesting thing: headshots do additional
Oh
damage
yeah,
and staggers the hell out of them too for a while.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and yes, you can do the aiming mode, like the first-person aiming mode, if you're too far away to lock onto. And yes, if you hold the L2 button and the aim button at the same time, even though you can't see it, your character is in fact in power shot stance, and you can aim a headshot with a power stance and deal extra damage with a power shot. So you can actually,
Huh,
put the weaknesses on top of it, compound the weaknesses on top of each
hmm,
other, and do some sick damage. But yeah, the
nice,
hard thing about that is you either spend a heck of a lot of money on arrows, um, or you farm a lot of
right,
farm animals, farm a lot of animals for their bones and stuff. Um, So I did that for a while. I saw a cool bow build video, which recommended the Misbegotten bow, which is a dropped bow from some
Mm-hmm.
enemies at the Tower of Morn or the Castle of Morn, Morn
Mm-hmm.
Castle. And it took me forever, but eventually that bow dropped when I was helping someone else run through there. It was so great. I got that up. I got that bow, and I put the barrage ability on it. Well, let's just shoot arrows about this speed. Boom, 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 boom. About that
Wow.
speed. It's pretty impressive, and you can come out of it and do a dodge roll pretty quickly too. So this build video that I saw recommend using that bow and just get the freaking poison arrows and the bleed arrows. You have to like
Yeah.
farm them a lot, of course, craft them a lot. But if you do that, you can poison a boss and then bleed blood loss a boss too.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked pretty well for some bosses, but not for others. And then I got those Wolverine claws after a while, and I thought these are
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. And they also have innate blood loss. And I'm gonna say I think bleed is just actually OP in this game. Like it
It
works
really is.
a lot on nearly everything.
It is. It's a very popular thing to go for, and all of the speed runs that I've seen use bleed in some way.
And then eventually, I found that tower shield in the castle of the Stormvale Castle after you beat Margit. I don't think you can get in there without. Is it possible to get into the castle area without defeating Margit? That would be cool.
If it is, it's definitely not intentional. I
Right.
don't think you're supposed to be able to.
Okay, yeah. But if you can get once you're in the castle, there's a tower shield in there, and I never found a shield stronger than that one, even like a big heavy one. Because like I got the Tree Sentinel's awesome shield, but that's actually not as defensive as the other shields. It just has that cool ability to reflect magic and projectiles back at the enemy, or just magic, yeah, which is pretty cool. But I just wanted the defense, so I stuck with the tower shield for a long time, and I realized I'm not going to find a better shield than this. So I maxed it out, almost maxed it out, the shield.
Well, that really doesn't do anything, I don't think.
I think it did increase the guard boost ability
Are you
a little
sure?
bit. It didn't increase the amount of damage reduced. It didn't
Right.
increase that, but I think it went like from 50 up to 60 from
Oh,
beginning to max anyway. Not a lot, but better than nothing, I guess. I don't know.
I haven't upgraded any shield because on the very first upgrade, it doesn't show any improvement other than physical damage improvement. Like if you're
Right.
going to attack.
Like if
with
you're
it.
going to hit them, right?
Right.
Yeah. I should have hit them more with it since I used it. I upgraded it.
Good.
Yeah. So I use that, and I use a spear, which is like the old school safety method for people who are scared of playing these hard games.
Yeah, that's
'Cause
true.
You can hold your shield up and stab at the same time.
Poke them.
And yeah, when I heard about that cross Naginata spear as being a good spear, it has innate bleed and all that. I also put on I didn't have the poison. I never found the poison Ash of War or whatever, but I found the one that lets you do frostbite. And I think it works the same way as bleed, where it just builds up the frostbite gauge, and when they get frostbitten, they just take an amount of damage one time, right? Isn't that how it works?
I use that one the least, but yeah, it's similar to bleed, but they also their
Defense is down a little bit, maybe.
no, their movement is slowed. Some are probably immune to that, but their actual animations slow down.
Okay, I didn't notice it, but that sounds good. Even though I did it, I never noticed it. Yeah. So I eventually my final build with that, and this is the thing I used basically through the rest of the game, because this was strong against the largest number of regular enemies, almost entirely like were just like not scary at all to me anymore. And then any boss that's like a dude with a sword, or like a knight, like totally destroyed him with that. Yeah, blocking things a lot. I also put the barricade shield ability on that shield. What that lets you do is absorb one hit for free, for free meaning no stamina cost. And so
I see.
you can use that to block an entire massive combo from a boss even. I mean, you only get the free hit is the only one the first hit is the only one that gets blocked for free. But that I had a lot of stamina. I went up to over 40 endurance. So
Okay.
yeah. And yeah, I just like, block and pokey a lot of guys to death. But there were some people that did not work at
Right. Of
all. And
course
the
not.
the one that it didn't work on the most was Malekith.
Right.
For me because in phase 2, and it's funny because phase 1 is like super easy with that build, but then it's the same guy, just phase 2. Now all of a sudden he's shooting like magic damage at me and it's going right
Yeah.
through my shield. Now what do I do?
Even
Eventually
if he
I got summoning help for that one.
even if he didn't shoot magic damage, his attacks in that phase are really like buck wild.
Right, he's just swinging all over the place and throwing
Yeah, he's all over the
projectiles.
place. He's
Yeah.
shooting big AoEs out. He's shooting projectiles. He's up in the air for like a minute. It's
Yeah.
like he's a really crazy boss fight.
Yeah. So that was all my builds. How about yours?
Did you maintain a medium weight, like a medium dodge
Yes.
roll, or were you okay? You
Yeah, I
were
would
okay.
medium was good enough for me.
Yeah, me too.
Hmm.
So what I ended up doing was, yeah, heavy armor with a medium roll, whatever the best shield I could get, which I think there was a tree sentinel shield, later in the game that has like 70 guard boost or some shit without upgrades. Um, and, initially I was, can't remember what I was using right off the bat. Probably some stupid sword, but I was using like a club for a while,
Hmm.
and then I started to use and upgrade decks, and I got a different set of claws than the one you got, but they're very similar. They
Okay.
have bleed on them. So I was upgrading decks to get that what's it called? That scaling to work better for me.
Right.
And then I got a Godfrey or Godric's boss weapon is a big axe.
Oh.
That was with me throughout the whole game. So that does a lot of stagger damage, and just if you boost it up, since it uses the somber
Ah,
smithing
yeah.
stone, the upgrades jump way higher between upgrades.
Because you
So I
only
was
need
able to
one of each.
get,
Yeah.
yeah, you only need one of each. They're rarer, but you only need one of each. So the result was I was getting more damage output more quickly with these upgrades. So it's one of the reasons why
Mm-hmm.
I ended up sticking with that early on. And then toward the end, it had quite a lot of damage. So that causes standard damage is what the game calls it, just like
Right.
regular damage, whatever the
Yeah.
fuck that means. But in order to do well against enemies like you were talking about in the cave, I had a well, not a club. I had some kind of big mace that I
Mm.
was using that was like upgraded, sort of. But these enemies, including those blue crystal guys, have you fought any of
I
those?
think I fought some blue crystal guys. Yeah.
If you use strike damage on them, it just
Oh
destroys
wow.
them. Like, if you use anything else, you're in for a much harder time, but you will actually permanently, like, crack their outer layer if you hit them enough with a heavy strike weapon,
Oh wow.
and then they will take stagger from almost any damage source. Like, you really fuck them up.
Hmm.
Then, much later toward the end of the game, I started leveling up Faith and had I forget where I got it, but there's a sword that isn't physical. It's just like this
It's
um
magic.
it's a Faith sword that has like runes as the
Oh,
blade itself.
I think I saw somebody using that. Yeah.
Right. And so it will go through a lot of shields.
Oh wow.
And the skill that it has is a unique skill where you do a really huge horizontal sweep, like the blade extends way out. And the game
Oh.
even says it's an unblockable attack.
Oh, nice.
And it really does do a lot of damage to a big, wide area. So that was fun, getting a little bit of faith in there, using a couple of incantations, but not very many.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I had the claws for quick bleed, swipes to get blood loss going. I had the ant spur that I was talking about to do like a DOT, damage over time thing on certain bosses. If that applied, sometimes it didn't make sense. Sometimes it did.
Mm-hmm.
And then toward the very end, I had the there's a guy, the Godskin
Duo,
apostle.
Apostle. I
Yeah,
fought that guy.
yeah. So one of them drops a really long um, thrusting sword, is what the game calls it,
Hmm.
and that works a lot like a spear, where you can have your shield up and poke with it.
Oh yeah, rapiers and
And
stuff work that way too.
yeah, so this is basically a heavy rapier, which is a new type of weapon that Elden Ring has compared to the other. It's like an S-stock, but even bigger.
Hmm.
And the charged attack is like a multi-hit. Like you can stagger guys when you upgrade that thing pretty easily. So it was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I had to have something trick in my bag for every little thing coming out, similar to you, and I think the
Yeah.
game definitely wants you to do that.
Yeah, I should have put some points into some of the magic. I didn't do that at all. I should have
Me
probably.
neither. I didn't do that. Arcane, I found a bunch of cool arcane weapons that I didn't do anything with because they had no arcane points.
Mm. Cool.
All right.
You have any more questions on your list?
Let's see here. So we talked about Millennia. We talked about the crumbling city, the Farum Azula,
Yeah, that was like the last dungeon kind
one
of.
of the last areas. Did you fight a big dragon boss in there, like in a big arena, like a two-headed dragon boss?
No, I didn't find that.
Yeah, so that's some kind of secret boss that neither of us found apparently. I don't even know how to get to it. I've seen videos of people fighting it. It's one of the other like ultra secret
Hmm.
extra bosses. Um, the boss fight on that looked really cool. I wasn't sure if you found it or not.
Yeah, I haven't. I'm interested though, and
Hmm.
Millennia as well.
Yeah, Millennia is a crazy fucking boss fight. And talked about the story, talked about using outside sources. So I also used a wiki toward the end of my game just to wrap up some of the quest lines that I thought maybe I could wrap up.
I didn't get any progress on a single one, and I
Yeah,
tried
I
to.
missed probably most of them because they're really easy to miss. Like if you don't do the right thing at the right time and talk to the right dude
I
on the
mean,
right
dude,
fucking
I found this
minute.
girl. Dude, I found this girl. And she's like, "Oh, hey, can you I left my emerald necklace back in my home, but I can't go back there now cuz it's been destroyed or like there's monsters over there.
Right.
Whatever shall I do? Will you get it for me?" I'm like, "Sure." And she's like, "It's just there beyond the way." Okay.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm looking at the map. Like she's not pointing in the direction. So I'm looking at my
Yeah.
map and I'm in Liurnia of the Lakes and I'm like, "Okay, there's like a destroyed thing over there. Went over there. There was a
Nope.
death bird boss there.
Oh boy.
Eventually beat it, but lo and behold, no necklace from the boss or in the area. So the only
Hmm.
other area left is like way over there, near the I guess kind of close to the entrance of the town that has the academy. And I'm like wandering around with it, did not see it, so I didn't do that.
Uh,
And then like when I saw Rani the witch
yeah.
in her home,
Oh
I,
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah,
talked
yeah.
to the guys downstairs in her house, in her tower, and the guy's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go to freaking what's that place that underground? Is it Sufria? Sofria?
So
Sofria, I
there's the
think.
Safria
Yeah.
River, and then there's Nokrin, which is the place they're trying to find.
Okay, I didn't find that, but yeah. So he's like, "I'm gonna go to Sofria," and like I'm pretty sure I knew exactly the place he was talking about. I went down there, looked all around. He said he was gonna take like the Mistwood entrance. I'm like, dude, I
Is
know
this the
exactly where that is.
is this the dog head guy?
Yeah, yeah, I think he did have a dog head. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So I went there. Dude wasn't there. So I don't know.
He was there. He was pretty well hidden. He's off in a corner somewhere. And then when you
Oh,
find
Jesus.
him, he just says, "Well, I don't know what to do." And I'm like, great. And then
Neither do
you
I.
go, yeah. And then if you go to one of the other towers near where Ronnie is, there's another magician guy with a big hat.
Yeah, him.
He basically says, "You have to find Nokrin, idiot." And I'm like, okay. And I don't know where to go. and I looked up online how to find that because that's a big quest line. I was like, I want to do one quest line. I don't
Right.
know what I'm doing. So I followed that one, and I don't know how I would have figured this out on my own. You really have to go, like, and there's quite a few places that it takes you through that I would not have found otherwise.
Oh.
There's a couple boss areas and some underground areas that are pretty cool to look at if you ever get the opportunity.
Hmm.
And yeah, those places were really crazy. I think you have to fight Radon, the big boss that you skipped, because
Mm.
when you kill him, he opens up a new area underground.
Oh, okay.
And the game really doesn't do a very good job of telling you that happened. Like right when
Oh.
you kill him, there's a giant explosion way off beyond the horizon. You can't even see what it is. And I'm like, oh, okay, explosion. Sure, I don't know. I killed the boss. Ta-da! I don't know what that means. Like whatever. And apparently, a comet or a star
Hit
crashed
over
into the
there.
ground
Oh,
over
wow.
there and opened up an area.
That's
But
cool.
there's no indication on your map that this happened. I had no reason to go where this occurred again. Like I finished being in that area.
I mean,
Like,
the reason would be is that you saw the explosion. So yeah.
but it was nowhere near. Like it was in that direction, but it was like not like I don't know how I was supposed to figure that out. Like it was way the fuck over in that direction.
Okay.
Like it wasn't in the vicinity of where I was currently. I don't know.
Hmm.
Crazy stuff. There were a lot of quest lines. Ronnie, if you do her quest line, does give you a different ending. There are four or
Mm.
five endings, I think.
Yeah, I actually watched them all already.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
then Ronnie's the one with the moon.
Yeah.
That was a cool ending. And
Mine was boring. Like I just sat in the chair and that was it. I don't.
yeah, I didn't get that. I did the Ronnie one, so that's the ending I saw, and I don't think I haven't seen all the way through all of the other endings,
Mm.
but I've heard about most of them, including the one that they got very late, like the Unity or something ending. I forget.
Not sure.
Yeah, and yeah, so the wiki was kind of nice. Just I was initially thinking, oh, I'll get every weapon, but that's forget that. That's too much.
That's
Uh,
300 hours, yo.
at least, and a lot of the quest lines. The thing that sealed it for me is a lot of the quest lines you get locked out of
Ah, yeah, buddy. I thought so.
after certain events in the story happened. So there I was about to burn the Erd tree, and I was already locked out of like a good number of them.
Mm.
So oh well.
Yep.
And then I guess my last little thing here, I guess typical RPG type question. Did you hoard all of your rune arcs or did you actually use them?
No, I used lots of them. I had about
Really?
50 total, and I ended up using about 40 of them throughout the game.
Nice. I
Yeah.
barely used mine. I honestly forgot they were there. I didn't think the buff that you get off of them was that good.
You got like if you used I only had was it Margit or Godfrey's
Uh-huh.
one?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't remember where I went to get that thing. Like there's a thing you have to like take the boss rune. I forget how it
Yeah.
works.
So the way it works is when you kill a boss, you get their rune, but it doesn't work. You have to then take it to a specific tower, and if you look at the description on the rune, it'll tell you which one. It's not always super specific where to go, but it'll say, go to the tower west of wherever the fuck.
Oh, they're all different
And
towers?
they're all different
So I
towers.
got lucky, huh? Okay.
Yeah, well, that one's right near the boss. And they usually are near the boss you killed.
Hmm.
And then when you take it up there, it activates the rune and allows you to equip it and use a rune arc to enable it,
To enable it,
basically.
right. Yeah. And so
And
yeah, Godric, yeah. He
Mhm.
gives you like +5 to every stat. That's not bad.
Yeah, like every stat. Yeah. There are other runes. Millennia gives you one. Like any significant boss will give you one.
Right.
And I can't remember what they all do, but none of them were that impressive.
Oh.
Did you fight? And I'm just thinking about it because this is obvious. This is the highlight of the game for me. Now, crazy, I'm mentioning it now.
Okay.
Um, Did you fight Praetor Rykard?
No, I didn't find that guy.
Okay.
Where's he at?
So he is in the Volcano Manor.
Okay, I was in there, but I didn't find him.
That place is really tricky. I was able to find him on my own, more or less. You had to talk to a bunch of NPCs several times, and there's like a sort of a quest line with the woman that you find sitting in the chair
Okay, I didn't
when you
see
go there.
the chair. No, I don't think I went the same way as you. Um,
Oh, there's like a whole mansion in a volcano.
well, I mean, I was in Volcano Manor, that a place that was called Volcano Manor. I didn't really get to see the mansion aspect of it, but I,
Okay.
I was in this one area in, well, somewhere, and you know those like Iron Maiden things on wheels that grab
Oh
you.
yeah, they transport you there. So they took you to a section of it.
Right. Oh, a section of it. Okay. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
got
it's a
out of
whole big thing.
there, and
Yeah.
then yeah, like I didn't find any other areas in there.
Gotcha. So yeah, above where you got transported, there's like a whole area. There's some NPCs and things, and that leads up to another rune shard bearer boss. And that boss is like in every Dark Souls like game, there's always like a puzzle boss. So it's not quite a regular boss fight.
Yeah, kind of like
It's
the
like
first stage of Renala, maybe the first phase of her, maybe
yeah, a little
kind of
bit.
like that.
This is even more so,
Okay.
and I don't know if you've
Oh, I love
seen
puzzle
the boss
bosses.
fight.
He's a puzzle boss.
Kinda, yeah, because it's very different. I can explain it to you if you want. I don't know
I
if
don't think I
you're
do want you to tell me. Was
all
it
right.
cool? Tell me that.
It's my favorite boss fight. So
Okay, awesome. Is it one question then? Is it going to be like the dragon god from Demon
a
Souls,
little
where
bit,
once you know what to do, it's super
not
easy?
quite.
You still have to have some skill.
You still have to have some skill, but it's for specific reasons. It's unlike any other boss fight,
I have
and
to
it's
check
really
that out.
cool.
It's in
It is
Volcano
very
Manor.
cool.
Okay, I'll go
It's
there.
in Volcano Manor. Praetor Rykard is the guy. So that's it. That was my last question.
Cool. That was a good talk, I think.
I think so. I think we both really enjoyed this game. I'm a little surprised you enjoyed it as much as you did. I know it's really not in your wheelhouse, your mode,
Yeah, I mean,
right?
because it had all the exploration and the getting stronger slowly but surely was there.
Right. Yeah. So
In the
that's in
end, it
there.
didn't help as much as I hoped it would, but
Right. Yeah. Like I wrote in my review, the weapons are really what you're leveling up. Your character, not so
not so
much.
much. I mean, you have to level it up, but yeah, like I noticed that I did a couple like million rune farms. Like I did that
Hmm.
twice. So like let's
Mm,
just say I got
mm,
2 million extra runes that I never
sure.
would have gotten
Right.
otherwise. Like it didn't make me like super powerful that I could
No.
tell.
Right. It's
So
all in the weapons. I mean, your damage goes up by a little bit bits whenever you upgrade your strength or whatever your core stat is. But when you take a weapon from +10 to +12, boom, that's a big upgrade.
yeah.
Or 12 to whatever the max is, like
It
big
goes up to
upgrade.
25, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had the max one on my spear.
I had 2 or 3 maxed weapons.
Cool.
All right. So unless you have anything else, I think we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I think we're good.
All right. So thank you everyone for listening. This is episode 25 of Turn-Based Memories. We're here on YouTube. We're out there on podcast services of every sort and flavor. If you like what you heard, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's probably our best metric of interest that we have going right now. Spread the word because we don't do it.
Not really.
Not really. And we usually do this, but we don't have a coming up next attraction.
Oh, that's right. We
at
have to
the end.
decide still.
We still have to decide what our next video is. So it will be episode 26, whatever video game we're going to be picking.
Yeah.
If you have suggestions,
Drop them
maybe,
in the comment section.
drop them in the comment section. And even if it's not our next one, you know,
We
sure,
might check it
like,
out
why
later,
not?
yeah.
We might check it out later. Go ahead. Yeah, that leaves me to say thank you, Zoltan.
Thank you, Mel.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Have a good day.
Good night.